on, guys? Today we're going to be talking a little bit about Ultimate Alliance 3. I actually just finished it. I'm really late to the game. For those of you who don't know, I had an internship going on with AT&T for quite a while, so I've been doing that. Kind of prevented me from really touching this. I put like an hour into the game over the past month that it's been out. But now that it's out, I'm finally gotten around to playing it. I beat the story pretty quickly. It only took like 2 nights. I definitely have some thoughts about it. I'll get into it over the course of this video. I don't want to make this too long, so I'm definitely going to be a little quick about things. But if you guys want more thoughts like this, more discussion about Ultimate Alliance, my thoughts on the franchise and where it could potentially be headed, just go ahead and let me know. And of course, I'll throw something up. When I was growing up, I remember playing Ultimate Alliance for the very first time. That game, I will still say, holds the highest bar for what an Ultimate Alliance game could be. It's beautiful in so many ways. The level of detail, the story, the complexity to the game was just unprecedented at that time. And I'm not a big MMO person. I'm not a big co-op person. I'm huge into the third person single player experience. Think Spider-Man. Think like GTA. Think things like that. Assassin's Creed. But the thing that drew me to these games is that they're legitimately fun and they tell a great story. Story is crucial to what this game was. I didn't expect anything, and it was just, the build-up was so good when you finally fought Dr. Doom at the end. It was beautiful. And then Ultimate Alliance 2 came around. That's how I was actually first introduced to the Civil War. Before the comics, I never read the comics before that. Before the movie even, that was when I was first introduced to the concept. So a lot of people didn't like the second one. I loved it. These games had a huge impact on my childhood, growing up, and that's the biggest thing. So the older I got, the more I missed this franchise. It's been I think 2009 was when either the first one or second one came out. It's been a while, almost 10 years. So when Ultimate Alliance 3 was announced, I was like, holy shit. But then it looked like freaking Marvel Future Fight. I'm not a big Marvel vs. Capcom person, but I have a buddy who's really talked about how bad Disney and Marvel games have treated this franchise with the newest entry, and I was so worried about that with Ultimate Alliance 3. To right off the bat, I will say this did not disappoint in the way that I expected it to. Now, it may have disappointed in some ways, and I'll get into that, but this was nowhere near as bad as Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. I have played it. It was pretty bad. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into Marvel vs. Ultimate Alliance 3. Let's stop retreading on the past. Let's look to the future. I'm going to break this up into a couple segments. First off, I'm going to talk a little bit about gameplay. Gameplay is critical in these games. This is a game, again, not a huge MMO person, not a huge co-op person, but I expected the game to retain the fundamentals of the first 2 games in the franchise, because when I went into it, I was expecting the same top-down view, things like that. Let me just say, I appreciated the developers for putting in a third-person camera into this game. It wasn't, I don't want to go full on Assassin's Creed, Batman, third-person camera, but it definitely had a more third-person vibe. You can choose, you can go back to the classic camera, or you can choose. Of course, there's certain segments where the camera will default to a certain location. You can't move it, but that's just to be expected with these games, and clearly for the benefit of gameplay. Otherwise, it might have irritated me. So I'm actually glad they did that. I'm glad they have the choice. That thing was fucking incredible. Let me just say, this game played beautifully. This is probably the smoothest playing not Marvel vs. Capcom, smoothest playing Ultimate Alliance 3 that I've ever, Ultimate Alliance game that I've ever played. And the super moves, though it does lag, and that's just a performance issue with Nintendo Switch once you have so much stuff going on, particularly till the end when you have so many characters and minions on screen and things like that. Just the super moves themselves were beautiful. I read a couple, I think it was Angry Joe, somebody was talking about the super moves weren't anything too special, but I look back at the previous games and I look at this one and I'm like, dude, these are fucking awesome. At least these represent the characters, and that's the best part. When I saw Spider-Man do the little and it's just the Scarlet Witch, was pulling everything up. That reminded me of when she was pulling up Thanos in Endgame. It was just a beautiful sight. And once again, these super moves did not disappoint. The only thing that disappointed me is there's only one, and I could be wrong about that because of the skill tree system. I haven't really looked at that, but I'll get into that in a second here. I'm just going over the pros of gameplay so far. So, obviously super moves, incredible. The gameplay was so fucking smooth. Once again, just beautifully smooth, and it just felt very intuitive. The one issue, not issue, but one issue I do have is it kind of did feel a little constrictive, in the sense that, yes, it might have been the smoothest playing Ultimate Alliance game, but all the games have been constrictive in the sense that sometimes like a super move won't be directed the way that you want, or an attack, like a super attack, like holding down the right bumper and using one of the face buttons won't be directed in the correct location. So, that was definitely an issue I had. But, regardless of that, still the smoothest playing Ultimate Alliance game. I think those constraints are just to be expected with a game like this, with a genre like this. I really appreciated the character variety, just pulling so many characters across the Marvel spectrum. I haven't really followed the game before launch, besides maybe the initial trailer, seen a couple things on Twitter. I just wanted to go into it blind, and frankly, I thought it was going to disappoint heavily, so that's why I never followed it. I didn't want to get my hopes up, but to realize the Defenders were in here, at least 3 of them. Where's Jessica Jones? To see the Defenders in this game, to see like Venom, to see Sonyverse characters, to see X-Men characters. I'm sure the Fantastic Four is probably coming later down the line. To see these characters all in the same roster it was a beauty, because that's something we don't see in the movies right now. We will, thanks to the Fox Disney deal, but unfortunately, at this point in time in games, there was a point when we got all of them, like the first Ultimate Alliance, I believe the second Ultimate Alliance, but eventually the rights kind of died off, and that doesn't happen anymore. But now it's coming back. They just added, of course, the Fantastic Four stuff and Spider-Man PS4. So there's some cool deals going on. I was glad to see Ultimate Alliance 3 incorporate all these characters from across the Marvel spectrum, no matter who they are. Even people I don't really know, like that one lady with the sword in Dormammu's realm in the Dark Dimension. So before I move on, I just want to talk a little bit about some negatives that I had with the gameplay. And again, I just haven't looked at these. I never had an incentive to look at these, but Infinity Trials and the skill tree system, this includes like the ISO 8s and things like that. First off, like when I play a game, I'm someone that I'm not a huge RPG person either, so that's why I don't really like the whole looting and grinding and buying all these upgrades and things like that, leveling up. To an extent, yeah, it could work well, kind of like Spider-Man PS4, but there's a level of depth that I don't really care about, because, I'm busy, we're all busy, like, I don't want to be, it's the same complaint I have with Assassin's Creed, like, I hate how games are starting to get, how do I put this, like, longer, but not in terms of quality, longer just because of upgrades and progression you need in order to actually get to the next level, to the next mission, or just to be strong enough to defeat a certain boss or a certain encounter. I think that's bullshit on the game industry's part. I just never really found a reason to upgrade. Near the end, I did a little bit just because I was kind of afraid to face Thanos without upgrading through the entire game. And I'm glad I did, because it was like one boss fight after another. I'll go into that in a second. But I also didn't think Infinity Trials were that important. A lot of the reviews I read too also said that they didn't care for the Infinity Trials that much. I just feel like there's no incentive to do them. It's not like challenge maps in the Arkham games. And the worst part was it felt like these were required in order to like access certain characters like Magneto and things like that. And I just don't agree with that method, to make you go through all this bullshit. Like from what I read, I think you have to like get a certain amount of medals or something like that, and then of course progress through a number of challenges in order to just access one character. And the worst part is you can't even do these challenges until you find them in the world, so that means you have to go back and replay levels that don't even have that much replayability to begin with. So it's kind of a downside there, you know what I mean? Like, the Infinity Trials aren't terrible, but some of them are made to be hard, just like certain points of the game. And like, it sucks when you're locking kind of like huge characters behind that I'm sure a lot of just casual players want to play. Like, we're all busy, we all don't have time to like grind through that. So it's such a shame that we're seeing 4 huge characters get locked behind. But those are just 2 negatives I had. There were a lot of positives there. I want to say the gameplay is outstanding. This is probably the best that Ultimate Alliance has ever been gameplay wise. Now, moving on from that, let's move on to graphics. So everything in this game is so crisp. You can tell this is made for HD. I don't know if it looks good in 4K. I haven't gotten a chance to test it out on my 4K TV because that's in storage right now. But the biggest thing is that even running off a Switch, like, this is probably the crispest looking Ultimate Alliance game, like, especially given like the first 2 were made like practically a decade ago. Like, it definitely makes sense. So like, to see this game, like, and I'll get into the negatives in a second, just look as crisp as it does. And this is on character models as well. Sometimes environments look beautiful, but character models don't. In this case, both do. It's just like environments like Wakanda, or like the city where all the Defenders were when you were going after the Kingpin. It's such a beautiful scenery, such a beautiful character setup. Like, a lot of the models look amazing. Like Jessica Jones, for example, looked amazing. I'm kind of sad she isn't playable, but it was just so great to be able to see this level of polish on these environments. Now that's the positives out of the way. Let me talk about the one issue I have with the graphics in this game. Is it seems like, and I've seen this since like before launch, you know, when I was looking at all the marketing stuff, a lot of it looked different. You look at the first 2 games, they were made to be kind of like very realistic with like kind of a comic booky touch to them. You know, a lot of games are often made like Spider-Man PS4 is probably a realistic looking game with a comic booky color palette aspect to it. You know, this in this game, I wasn't sure if like half the time I was playing like a very comic-y art style, kind of like Marvel vs. Capcom, or like was I playing something to the level of the Arkham games? So like the city, when you were going after Kingpin, for example, looked so real, you know, as real as this game will get. But and then you go to like say Wakanda, or you go to that opening level at the raft, like it's just these conflicting art styles. You know, I'll put them up on screen here so this way you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about. It seems like the artists, you know, they did a good job, but at the end of the day, when you have 2 competing art styles in the same game, it comes off a little weird. So this way, I don't really know what to think about it. Before launch, I thought it was going to be some half-assed comic booky art style. It's not going to really look good, just like the Marvel vs. Capcom games. And some parts look like that, but then other parts look beautiful. They look amazing. They look realistic. And it's just like, again, it could be a preference thing, but it's hard to even have a preference when half the game looks different. So obviously you guys, if you haven't played it, play it for yourself. You'll see exactly what I mean. On to the part that I really want to talk about, which is the story. Okay, I will say the story's not terrible. Like, there were some parts when I was like, okay, you know, they got Thane, they got the son of Thanos, you know, there was some cool stuff going on. Long story short, I just feel like this story, doing the Infinity Gauntlet storyline in their own way was great, because we haven't seen that in the first 2 Ultimate Alliance games. I don't even think Thanos was in there. It was just the wrong timing. It's like, say, like trying to do Ultimate Alliance 2 back when Civil War came out, like the movie. It's wrong timing. Just coming after Infinity War and Endgame, we're expecting these massive twists, this massive level script writing that you got from like the writers of Infinity War and Endgame. You know, you can't match that in a game in a game like this, especially from brand new developer. This was their first try. It's hard to tell exactly what they were going for here. You know, it wasn't a straight adaptation, but it was cheesy enough to the point where it was. And it just, you know, coming right after Josh Brolin's amazing performance as Thanos, like, I couldn't get behind the Thanos in the game. He was just another bad guy that I didn't care about. In fact, you barely see him in the game up until, like, the final mission. And even then, you see him towards the end. He's the last boss, and that's pretty much it. There's no development between him, Thane, like, the characters. There's nothing. So I just feel like this was the wrong time to release this. Like, this should have came out during the hype for Infinity War and Endgame. And I get it, development cycles, things like that, but that's the thing. You can really tell this game was manufactured just to build off the hype. And like, for best or worse, you know, we got a good story, but it wasn't great. It wasn't what it could be. The script writing, especially near the end, was just abysmal. Like, you had boss fight after boss fight with all the different members of the Black Order, and then finally Thanos and Thane. Like, it was so rushed at the end. You know, my hands were tired, just boss fight after boss fight. And you as a player, it's probably not a good sign. So, especially if what you're doing and what you're seeing on screen isn't worth that pain. So, again, it's a small gripe that I had. I'm really excited to see what they do with DLC. I know they said that they have more story content coming, not just characters and all that stuff. So I'm really excited to see what happens there. And especially, like, given this is the developer's first attempt at this, you know, I'll give them a pass. I will say the story could have been way worse. You look at Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, we don't even talk about that trash. Like, it's absolutely terrible. Now, it'll be really interesting to see where they go from here story-wise. It'll be interesting to see if they do anything with Thanos and Thane. But I think from here, now that they did the Infinity Gauntlet, they got that out of the way. Sure, it was the wrong timing, but now they have an opportunity to tell a truly original story from the beginning. Like, that hasn't been done in comics. Don't do the Adam Warlock thing, or maybe adapt that in some way, but, you know, I think that would be a great opportunity because it hasn't been done in the movies yet. We don't have a visual comparison outside the comic books, so it's perfect for casual gamers and even hardcore fans alike. So the final category I just want to briefly talk about is the sound and the voice acting. So this includes like the in-game score and then the voice acting of all the characters. I thought the voice acting was phenomenal. You know, they got my boy Yuri for Spider-Man. That's literally probably all I cared about. But even the other characters, you know, I don't think they're the same ones from the Square Enix game, like Nolan North and all those guys, but you could really tell that there was definitely effort. Maybe the writing didn't always do them justice, but you know, the voice actors and actresses put in all the effort that they possibly could. And you can really tell it's good voice work. You know, it's not Spider-Man Web of Shadows level. You can definitely tell that, hey, they got these guys in some voice booths for a couple hours, and they really made them go through the lines a couple times to make sure they get the best performances possible. So it was good. It was good. I think that, again, it was just hard to get behind some of these guys coming right after Endgame and Infinity War. You're so used to seeing these actors, hearing their voices, and things like that. It's so hard to get behind a new interpretation of what they could sound like. And I think that might be a huge downfall to the Square Enix Avengers game, but I'll talk about that in another video, of course. I still haven't made a video about that. I've been meaning to get around with it, but I've been busy here with the AT&T internship, so I hope I get to that soon. You know, once again, I would say I'm hyped for it. But moving on, the score in this game was okay. You know, it wasn't anything too special. I kind of hated hearing the same theme for every boss fight right when you begin. You know, it's just, once you hear that theme, even before the boss fight starts, you know you're about to get into a boss fight. And I don't think that predictability is a good thing when you're playing a game. The music, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. And I think that there is a definite potential for them to improve that. I really love the score for the first Ultimate Alliance. I can't even remember the score for the second Ultimate Alliance, but the first one had a phenomenal score. So I don't know if the same guys worked on this. If they did a terrible job. You could tell it was rushed. But if they haven't, I suggest going back and hiring those people, because like that score was phenomenal. Like I remember that Dr. Doom boss fight music. It was beautiful. So again, if you're watching this, developers, great voice acting, keep the cast, you know, it's beautiful, just keep doing what you're doing. But for the score, y'all really do have to amp up your game. You know, whether you just get your current music score performers, your orchestra, to kind of level it up, or really just invest in some better people to do that job. So with that being said, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Before I give this game a score, you know, I just want to say that this game has come nowhere near beating the first two. You know, the second one, I know a lot of people give it a crap, but I loved Ultimate Alliance 2. It's what introduced me to Civil War. I was hooked. And then the Negative Zone stuff, it was unpredictable. The story was phenomenal. The way they set up the Civil War was really fucking cool at the beginning with Hydra and all that. So like, it was amazing. So like, the story-wise, a lot of different aspects. I will say this game had the best gameplay. It had it had great voice acting. It just unfortunately lacked a good score. It lacked a good story, and it just came at the wrong time. You know, it was definitely a rush product, and you can tell. However, these developers show promise. I'm really excited for that. I think that they should helm a sequel to this. And I'm going to call it a sequel just because, you know, these were clearly made to profit off of Infinity War and Endgame. It might as well be considered a different franchise, because they probably had never had a plan to develop a third Ultimate Alliance, considering it's been almost a decade. So I will give you guys credit. This was a beautiful first attempt. It surprised me as someone that didn't follow it, because I thought it was going to be a half-assed game. I thought that it was definitely something I didn't expect, and I should never have spent $60 on it. I'm a huge Marvel fan. I normally buy stuff at launch, so that's probably why I did. But again, it's also a Nintendo game, so stuff on there doesn't also always go on sale for that cheap. So, you know, if you ever do have a couple bucks to spare, you know, pick it up, see what you think. I think it's a fun game. I think it has a little bit of replayability. You know, give the Infinity Trials, all that stuff a try. I didn't. I might go back at some point. But there's definitely room to improve, and I'm really excited to see what these developers do next, now that they understand how the development process works and have the creative freedom, hopefully, to move wherever they want from here. Don't follow the movies. Try to honestly beat the movies to whatever storyline they're working on right now, and really capitalize off of that, because you don't want to rehash the same story like the Infinity Gauntlet right after a big event like Infinity War and Endgame. It's not a good idea, clearly. Real quick, I just want to say, you know, with all the DLC plans, please include Jessica Jones and the Fantastic Four. I was so disappointed I couldn't squad up all 4 of the Defenders characters. It was pretty sad. Also suits for all the movie characters. I don't know if you guys have the rights to that, but I think that would be awesome. I know all of us fans really want movie costumes for all these characters, because they're all in the game. You know, like hell, I will pay for them. I know they're in the season pass. So for those that don't have the season pass, fucking, I'm sure they would be willing to pay for them, like a movie pack. Like, I think that'd be beautiful. But once again, Jessica Jones, we need her in the game. On that note, I'm going to wrap it up here. Let's give this game 7 out of 10. Definitely not terrible, but definitely not great. There's still room to improve, as everything always does. But, you know, I am really excited to see where these developers take it from here. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for your time. You know, I really want to make more videos like this whenever I get a chance. You know, this is mostly a professional, personal development channel, but I really love to make videos about some movies, games, TV shows, things like that I'm interested in. And whenever I get some free time, whenever I get around playing games like this, things like that, I would of course love to share my thoughts, my insights, and my suggestions on the future of whatever franchise I'm talking about. In this case, Ultimate Alliance. So I'm really excited for a potential Ultimate Alliance 4 or a sequel to this game from these developers. And from there, let's make it cross-gen, guys. You know, Xbox, PS4, instead of having to worry about it on my little handheld device and kind of destroy my fingers there. Honestly, after talking about this for however long this has been, pre-editing, I honestly do kind of feel like playing it again. So I'm probably going to hop right on that. Thank you guys so much for your time. Stay awesome. Have a beautiful day, night, wherever you're at. Peace out.